Good evening and welcome to the MG EV Community Podcast, streaming live tonight, Monday the 31st of October 2022. And I promise you we are a totally Halloween-free zone, hopefully tonight. We discuss all MG electrical vehicles, hoping to inform and entertain you for about an hour or so. I'm Dave Stewart, Dave S on the phone. And joining us this week are from Crawley in England, Steve Green.
Good evening, Steve is Green on the forum.
Welcome, Steve. Still driving a ZS?
Not at the moment. I still own one, but it's in the garage at the moment.
Oh, that's right. We'll maybe hear about that, right? Good. From Essex, we've got Barry.
Good evening. It's Barry H on the forum. I drive a ZS bright red, but you can see behind me the car I have on order.
Yeah, the object of your desires. Good. Fellow Scots joining us from Aberdeenshire, Keith and Vera. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, Hitayek on the forum. We have an MG5, normally an MG4, but it's in the garage as well. So we've currently two MG5s at the moment.
Right, and we will definitely be coming back to that, Keith, that's for sure. And the spookily well-informed, as ever, from Charlie Group, the Innovation Development Manager, Miles Roberts. Welcome, Miles.
Hi, everyone. Miles Roberts, CG on the forum.
If you're watching live, thank you for joining us, and please click on the like button and join on the discussion in the chat window. And we'll be keeping a look for things that are being said. Oh, there's quite a good flurry of activity already. That's great. If you're watching us later, thank you for choosing to watch this video, and please subscribe and get a notification for the next time we go live. In tonight's podcast, we're probably mainly going to be focusing on the new MG4. In the last podcast, we covered it in quite some detail, and got some feedback from the likes of Keith and Vera and Barry who'd driven it. We're now sort of going to revisit that and see what their current experiences are. Other things that we want to cover off as well. From tomorrow, Tesco's are going to stop their free EV charging, so we'll have a chat about that. We're going to discuss the MG4, particularly reports of an oil leak and the under-tray bulge. I'm intrigued to find out what that is. Miles, maybe have some updates for us on shipping of the ZS, the 4 and the 5. And there's some talk about a ZS EV replacement, which we'll maybe also be able to cover there as well. So probably, I think we'll just start off with the Tesco, I think, first. To the best of my knowledge, up until tonight, Tesco's were providing free EV charging in most pod points. But as of tomorrow, the new pricing is going to be for 7 kilowatt fast chargers, 28 pence per kilowatt hour. For 50 kilowatt rapid chargers, 50 pence per kilowatt hour. And 22 kilowatt chargers will be 40 pence, to the best of my understanding. Can anybody confirm or deny, is this the case? I look to Miles.
That is the case as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
Vera?
Yeah, I can confirm that, because I was charging the MG5 I've got on loan today while I was down at Tesco's shopping. So I got my last free charge. And when I looked on Podpoint app, it definitely had today free, and then it listed out the prices per day on the app when you do weekly rates.
Is it only Tesco's that's going to be affected by this? Or are they going to roll it out to other supermarkets?
I don't know. Yeah,
Podpoint was the only one that was free out of the supermarkets in England. So
right.
Lidl used and Aldi used Podpoint chargers.
Podpoint, yeah.
But they were already charging for their chargers.
Mm.
So Lidl and Aldi they already had chargers, but they were already charging for electricity, whereas Tesco's were offering it FOC. I personally think it's a good thing. I don't know if anyone wants to disagree with me, but I think that charging people for use of electricity just makes it fairer. the number of people who, when I go to, I've only actually used the Tesco charger once, and that was when it was first put in. That was purely to see what the charge speed was, because initially they were showing us 22 kilowatt chargers, and actually they were only offering 7. And I checked it with with my wife's XC40, which can charge at 11 kilowatts on 3-phase. So that was the only reason why I ever used it, because obviously I live at home. Yeah, I've got a charger at home. I can charge at home, and there's no sense for me sitting for 2 hours in Tesco's car park when I can charge for, well, for my solar panels and everything. You know, an Octopus Go, it's all quite cheap still for me, so there's no point. I do think that there are a number of people who I know personally who were using those free chargers at Tesco's. There's a 2-hour parking limit at Tesco's, and they were using it for like 1 hour 59 minutes every day, and literally have a timer set so that they didn't overstay. And they were, you know, it was, these are people who, you know, have the funds to be able to afford their own electricity and have the ability to charge at home. And the reason they were not doing so was because they were tight Yorkshire, I suppose. But it was,
Yeah.
The thing is that I would say it makes it unfair, because I think there's, you know, the reason for those charges is, yes, to attract some people to Tesco's, but also the idea is that it could potentially be a solution for people who don't have the ability to charge at home. And I think if you get there at 7:30 every morning and the same 4 cars are charging on the same 4 chargers every day, people who aren't using, they're not shopping in store, they're not charging. You know, if you've got a Tesla Model Y, unless you're waiting for installation of a home charger, I don't really see why you should be at a Tesco supermarket every single day charging your car. If it's free, if they're still there this next week, I assume it's because they need to, and they live in a terraced house and it's a company car that's been given to them. But I think that, and that's a fair enough, you know, if you're going to use electricity, then pay for it. But I think that the number of people who were freeloading just because it was free had got a bit silly, really. It meant that, I say, there was the same core of people who knew what time they had to get there to be able to get on the chargers and block them for the next couple of hours. And then, you know, you'd go again at 12 o'clock and they'd have done a shift change, and they'd just swap around and a different 4 would be charging. So I think that, yeah, I think it's a positive move that they started charging for charging.
Yeah, you've heard me say before, I would much rather pay and have a charger that works. You know, in Scotland we had Charge Place Scotland, well, we still have, and initially every charge point was free practically, but the amount of times you turned up and the charger wasn't working and you were desperate for it, so that really did upset me. The other one that, and this does rip my knitting, Miles, is in Perth. Perth, there's free charging still at the Broxton roundabout. There is a huge Tesco supercharger bay of about 6, I think it is, superchargers, and still you see Teslas at the standard chargers getting a free charge. Anyway, it's not all about me.
Yeah, it's not a brand battle, is it? I mean,
the other thing that annoyed me was I was down doing my shopping one day, and I put the car on to charge while I was at Tesco's and had a coffee, bit of shopping, and there was a guy pulled in the same time as myself and plugged in his car and then went away in another car with someone else.
Oh, yeah.
So he wasn't even staying at Tesco's.
Yeah,
he was going away.
And I think as well, it's like like tonight's a perfect example. So Halloween. So kids will go around houses and they will fill a shopping bag with as many free chocolates as they can possibly get because they're free. If their parents were paying for them, they wouldn't have more than 1 pack of sweets, would they? If they, and that's the thing, if something's free, you will overconsume. You will take more because you don't value it.
Yeah.
There was at 6 o'clock today, some sticky-fingered little 3 or 4-year-old came to my house and took 2 handfuls out of my pot. Now, I'm not wishing diabetes on anyone, but that deserves all she gets. Now, I think that again, it's just if something's not perceived as having value, then people don't value it.
Yeah.
And I think that if people are paying, I know for me, now that rapid chargers are, 55, 65, 75, 80, whatever pence per kilowatt hour. If I'm doing a rapid charge on the way back from, it's obviously now we're in cars that do 200 miles. Generally you won't be charging multiple times on a day. It's more likely that you're just going to charge once on your way back, unless you're doing a particularly extraordinarily long journey. I will just put enough to get me home, because if I'm paying 65 pence or more per kilowatt hour on the rapid charger, A, I don't really want to waste my time, because obviously it takes longer to get to a higher percentage. And B, I don't really want to, charge to 90%, get home with 50%, and that last 50% has effectively cost me an extra 15, 20 quid. Whereas if I'd done it at home overnight, it would have cost me £3 or £4 on Octopus Go.
Yeah.
So I think that, again, having a cost on there, it hopefully encourages people to think about, do they actually need to use the charger at that point?
Yeah.
Are they just grazing because it's free, or are they actually in need of a charge? So hopefully it will free up for people who do need a charge.
Exactly. Yeah.
It'll be empty from tomorrow at Tesco's and Inverurie.
Surely.
So I'm seeing James is saying that he believes Sainsbury's currently still
Yeah.
offering free from Podpoint. So
Yeah, that's why I asked the question, because my local supermarket is Sainsbury, and that's Podpoint. And certainly when 3 years ago when I got my car, I didn't have home charging point for some time while it was all getting sorted out, and I made use of it. But that's got a 3-hour limit on the parking, so you can go there, do a bit of shopping, parking, and I could walk home. It's only a 6 or 7 minute walk from there, and I could walk home, do something, then go back and collect it. But at least I was legitimately a customer of them and using it. But as you say, these people that just sort of turn up, park it there and go off with somebody else and just use that up, it is really abusing the facility.
So and it's 39 cents seemingly in Germany. So that probably equates to about 42 pence or something.
See Michael Wilson saying that his local Tesco's was full up with DPD vans. That happened at my local Tesco's, and the main depot was less than a mile away. So there was a lot of uproar with that at my local Tesco's. I know that for a fact, but they don't do it anymore. They haven't done it for a few months, but there was always one taxi, black cab, a new black cab. It always parks there every night.
Right.
If Vera was raging at the guy getting dropped off, what you going to do with a DPD driver? Oh my goodness!
Well,
Milton Keynes.
Milton Keynes is a very EV pro place, isn't it? There's chargers everywhere, and there's like one of the early charging hubs just off the M1 and Milton Keynes coach and train hub, and 9 they were the Polar originally, so now they're BP. I went there, all the lights were out. There were Milton Keynes council minibuses plugged in to all but one of the chargers, but they were plugged in, no drivers around, charges complete, and this is at 11:15 at night. I mean, that's bad, and that's the council doing it.
Yeah.
People like the taxi driver I was talking about, they don't seem to be bothered about any parking restrictions either. He just dumps it there every night and leaves it overnight.
Right.
So we'll keep an eye on that one, but it looks like Tesco shoppers, you will be paying for your electricity when you're charging. Maybe best nipping over Sainsbury's.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'll have to watch out for that to see if it ends up with all these people with Tesco shopping bags in their back.
Yeah. So, and there's 1 or 2 comments. Folk agreeing with you, Miles. 100% agree with Miles. A charge will help free up points. That's good. And poor Lank Puddin doesn't have a charge at his Tesco's, his Aldi's, his Asda, or his Lidl's. So don't know how to help them out there.
We just got them this last year, so it was, and it's quite a big-ish one in Skip. I mean, Skipson's not a particularly big town, but it is one of the bigger supermarkets. But I think that they are adding them as they go along, and some sites are obviously quicker wins than others, depending on how the electricity supply is for the site and so on. I think that I've just seen Edge Reviews has said a lot of people bought EVs on the premise of cheaper running costs. What are people's thoughts if the cheapest rate of electric is 50 pence per kilowatt hour? And what happens if they start charging road tax in the next few years, as has been mooted by a few newspapers this last weekend? Well, yeah, undoubtedly, EVs were cheaper to run than petrol cars. That was one of the big selling points for people. And if home electricity, let's say, from March, April next year, when the current cap is due to end, if electricity goes to 50 pence per kilowatt hour and there's no further subsidies, I think there's going to be more problems than just on EVs, to be fair. I think that, I already know that there's an awful lot of households that are struggling, and the concept of paying 34 pence per kilowatt hour and getting £60 or whatever off your electric bill every month for the next few months still isn't enough to make it affordable for people. And I think that, so yeah, I appreciate that EV cars consume a lot more electricity and people will be considering the running cost of those. However, I think that we've got bigger issues if electric does get to that sort of rate because of just the general cost of living. I think that there will be pressure on the government to do something because of general, cost of business and things. As a business at the moment, our dealership group has obviously experienced power increases like every other. 2 years ago, we were paying around 12 pence per kilowatt hour. Now we're currently paying around 50. So it does make a big difference to our day-to-day running costs, particularly as most of our cars are going electric. Obviously, all of our courtesy cars and demonstrators need charging, and all of the handovers that we do, people expect those to be charged as well. So our electricity costs have risen dramatically, and we've got more need for chargers on site as well.
You need a diesel generator just to run out the back.
Well, no, but we have got grid constraints on a couple of our sites, like Burnley MG, the site that's on. To get a grid upgrade, they'd have to tunnel a cable through underneath the canal. We've been quoted £500,000. So it's not it's not a quick win in that sense. No. So I think that EVs we were hoping would be cheaper running costs. They should be cheaper running costs because the electricity shouldn't cost as much as it does now. The cost is currently artificially high because of the cost of gas. If this government had invested in renewables for the last 12 years, we might be in a different position where we are now. I think that for a long time now we've been allowing other countries to invest in renewable or in nuclear or whatever in the UK. We've got a French company in building Hinkley Point C. We've got a Danish company that installed a whole lot of offshore wind. These are things that the British government should have done for ourselves, and that's and undoubtedly, that's the sort of, and planning restrictions. I'm getting a bit political now, but I think planning for new houses, all new houses should have solar on them. Why? Why not?
There's a campaign running at the moment for that, isn't there?
There just doesn't seem to be any sense as to why that wouldn't make sense. You've got house prices rising at the fastest rate for God knows how long. You've got massive demand for properties, but ultimately these houses, like this house I'm in now, I've put solar and a battery in this, but this house was built in 2015, 7 years ago. It should have been built with solar on it at the time. It shouldn't be something that, as a new build house that's still under a 10-year guarantee, it shouldn't be that I'm having to install solar. It should have already been done. And ultimately, when it's a house that's worth what it's worth, or what people say it's worth at the moment, it would have made sod all difference to the value, to the profit on the house, really. It would have been wrapped in up, and it'd have been a lot cheaper to put on in the first place. So, Edge Reviews, my opinion, and hopefully that of others as well, is that electric shouldn't cost what it does. If it does go up to 50 pence per kilowatt hour, and I know that the public cost of charging has gone up to that or beyond that. And again, that's another story, is that people who can't charge at home are unfairly penalised, paying a different rate to what we are. Then yeah, I think that the running costs are unfair, and I think that it is stupid that a diesel car should cost less to run than an electric car. That's obviously not putting out the pollution, and it should, the tax differences should be changed. You can't reduce the tax on diesel to help those drivers, and not reduce the tax or VAT on electric to.
I think the other thing
to make it cost parity.
The other thing that's unfortunate is obviously newspapers and media are a bit sensationalistic, and every time they do a comparison, they pick the worst possible journey at the worst possible circumstances at the highest possible price for an electric journey, and it's not a fair comparison. But yeah,
for me now, I mean, I've got 2 electric cars. For me now, my electricity is still cheap. I've got obviously solar, I've got battery. For me, the cost of running this car is significantly less than it would be for a petrol or diesel car. Point of fact, I did a review of a new X-Trail e-Power the other day, which is like a hybrid. Effectively, it's 2 electric motors that drive the car, and then there's a generator on board that generates electricity. The engine's not connected to wheels. It's not like a normal hybrid, but it is when you go to the petrol pumps, and it's £95 to fill the tank, and that gets 400 miles. And you think, okay, well, £95 of electricity at my house would go an awful long way in an electric vehicle. Still beat, it would still beat that sort of cost. So yeah, I mean, £95, £100, even if it was 50 pence per kilowatt hour, it'd be 190 kilowatt hours. If you're getting 3 miles per kilowatt hour, you're getting 570 miles for that £95, whereas obviously it was 400 miles in the hybrid. So costs are not the difference that they used to be, but I think that we are still way off before they get more expensive.
Yeah, I mean, public charging costs have gone up so much more than the cost of fueling a petrol or diesel car over this past year, of the crisis. And it is an artificial situation that the incentive for investment in renewables by the generators is gone, because the pricing model, which works, the auction model, which works on the highest cost of any producer on a particular day, so gas, pushes up the price. And now you get then into this really political argument about whether there should be a windfall tax or not. Well, those profits should never have been created. The producers that invest in renewables should be able to sell their electricity at a lower cost, and therefore attract more a larger part of the market, which would encourage investment into renewables, and the fossil things would be driven down. However, when you look at the politicians in control of it, you see that their investment, their personal investments and business investments in the fossil industry is disproportionate. Like Liz Truss was a former Shell executive. Do you believe that she gave up all of her Shell shares? I very much doubt it. So, Rees-Mogg is heavily invested in the gas and fracking and oil industry. Well, fancy that. He took the cap off of fracking. So, it's terribly skewed market.
A couple of alleged.
I'm not political about this, I mean, I just look at the finance of it, and you always follow the money.
Next podcast is Laura Kunzberg speaking about it. So on that note,
she went to school with Chris Mason from the BBC News. So every time he's on, we always take a photo of him looking horrendous on TV and send it through on the WhatsApp group. So yeah, Chris Mason, when he did that interview with Liz Truss, we're just like, how do you keep a straight face, mates? You know?
Okay, we'll keep simmering on that one for quite some time, I would think. And we did say that maybe we'll have a podcast just looking at standard charging costs, etc. So maybe that's something we could do a bit of analysis and a fair reporting on what the true cost of motoring is with an EV. So we'll go on. I know little or nothing about this. I just saw it coming through in the streams earlier on. MG4s with an oil leak.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to lead in this one? Because it took me by surprise.
Vera and Keith lead this one, if that's okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I picked up my MG4 on Friday, the 29th of September, and I had the grand total of 1 hour under a week when it went back with an oil leak at the back of the car.
Yeah, to be fair, it's not something you would be sticking your head under looking for. We can blame the internet family for this.
Yeah.
There was a forum post or two, I believe, at the time, claiming that the drips on their driveway and looked like it was coming from the gearbox. So it was a dry day, so I thought, oh, I'll stick my head underneath, and well, sadly there it was. It was you can't see much for all the under trays, but it came out the gap in the under tray and was just running, like being blown across the back of the car. So definitely, when you felt it, it was definitely oil. We've a chucky driveway, so it wasn't the easiest to see, but a couple of drops there. So oh dear. So phoned our dealer, who was I can't really fault Galanders at all. They've been great about it. They said, "Oh, take it over. We've got a car here for you. We'll investigate that straight away." So that was it. Dropped off. So I had it a week, and it was in. So they investigated over the course of the following week, but I believe China had a holiday or something was on the go, so there was not much feedback coming from MG China side. But the theory seemed to be it was coming out the breather. So they fitted I'm not sure if it was a different breather
Tube.
valve or what it was, but it has an extension tube on it. Reported that back to MG and did a road test. It seemed to be okay, but couldn't release it until they got the official okay from MG. So that's kind of where we are now, I think, as the Miles will advise on this, but I think the bulletin's now out. It's something to do with
so we got notified of this, initially via the forum, effectively. So we hadn't identified any vehicles leaking on PDI. We hadn't noticed anything, on our vehicles that were up in the air that only done delivery mileage. The first we knew about it was somebody on the forum saying that it was leaking. Other people then checked and found a few of their cars appeared to have a leak. It isn't every car. So the demonstrator that we have at Burnley that's done 1,000 miles, and I did 215 miles in it the other day, doesn't have the leak. So it's not every car. The first notification we got was 18th of October, when MG sent out a bulletin to dealers just saying we're aware of the reports and we're collecting information and we're speaking to China. We hope to have a response in a couple of days. At the moment, please, can you send us examples of this? Because at this point on the 18th of October, despite already being about page 30 of the thread on the MGV's forum, there was only about 12 cases that have been reported to MG. So that doesn't help. Obviously, if there's it's difficult to actually find out what's the truth as to who, because there's been a couple of examples on Facebook group of somebody claiming that they had this problem with the vehicle, and actually when we checked, they didn't actually own an MG4.
Ooh.
And they put some information out. So that's why sometimes we've got to be difficult. We've got to be careful on social media, because the number of reports that are posted on social media isn't sometimes the number of cases which actually exist in reality. Whatever reason, some people like to contribute to a snowball effect on on issues.
Sensationalize.
Yeah.
Next thing we got was 25th of October saying that a solution had been identified. Basically, that the oil leak was caused by an overfill of oil, and had now confirmed the correct volume for oil for refill. And there was also a new design for the breather, which basically is a belt and braces. It would have a longer pipe away from the breather, so it would basically go upwards. So in the event of anything being, if you're, I don't know whether it happens when the motor's being revved a lot when it's been cold or when it's hot, or I don't know what the actual occasion is that causes the oil to come out the breather. But basically, by moving the breather point further up, even if it did get frothed or whatever, it wouldn't actually escape the breather, is the idea. So the correct oil fill level should in itself stop the issue. And that is being done at the factory. They're checking the oil levels in the factory. They've adjusted that. And this breather kit effectively shouldn't be required, but it's there basically as a belt and braces, so that it won't leak in future. Even if you put in a litre of oil instead of 0.8, whatever, it won't leak out.
So it could be just a matter of that somebody on the production line was a little bit zealous with their filling.
I think it could be as simple as basically someone did the wrong calculation when they were working out what volume of fluid should go in. That wasn't checked. They started producing the cars, and because of where it was leaking from, because of what happened with it, and because it doesn't happen on all cars, it wasn't being picked up. And I think that, or it might be, it could be that one Chinese character looks like another. I don't know. I don't know where the faults happened. At what point. They believe that there was an overfill happening, and in a small number of instances, a small excess of oil was being ejected through the breather pipe. Now, oil is very much one of those substances which looks like an awful lot more has gone out than it has, because it tracks, because it stains, because it dribbles all the way down. So a very small quantity of oil. The overfill level, they believe, was about 100 mils overfill, which is not inconsequential, but it's like, I don't know, 2 caps of your Listerine bottle or whatever. It's not an awful lot of oil, but it would look an awful lot if you spilt it all down your pants. And certainly if it got flicked all over the back of the understray of your car as you're driving along, then it will spread for quite a distance.
Yeah, a couple of egg cupfuls.
So yeah, it's a couple of egg cupfuls. Yeah, so it's not a lot of oil, but it's a little bit goes a long way, so to speak. So if the vehicle has that issue, then take it to your dealership, and they will check the oil level, and they will refill it correctly and all the rest of it.
At the moment, Glanders, I've still got my car, so that's what, 4 weeks I've had it. But it's just because they're waiting on this
the official
parts
rather than the breather.
Yes, rather than the breather they fitted that solved the issue. So they're waiting, because they said rather than taking the car back and then having to come back with it again.
So
hang on to the MG5.
The modified breather should be with dealerships within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's what they told us on Friday. They said 10 to 15 days, and I should have my car back.
Yeah, but yeah, that seems to tie in a bit with
What you're saying. Yeah.
Is there any truth to that there are some people who are having to restrict it to 50 miles an hour or something? Or that one seemed a bit odd.
Well, I've seen Crawford Prasser on YouTube just been commenting saying official line from MG is the car can be driven but not over 50 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It doesn't say that on any of the bulletins that I've seen.
No, I couldn't see what said that. Why you would do that?
I'm just looking through all of the bulletins. It doesn't say anywhere on any of these, do not drive the car. So I'm just looking through. Yeah, there's no comments on any bulletin saying anything about the speed limit or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's not the information that I've been given, certainly.
But see there on the chat, there's Professor E saying that in Germany that's also been reported quite widely on the group. But as you say, Miles, these things take a life of their own, don't they? Once they get into social media and people get over enthusiastic.
Yeah, I mean, if you actually, I think if you look at the actual thread, or the thread on the forum on MGVs, there's if you keep a tick list of who's, I think there's now been about sort of 30 or 40 that have seen the leak on their own vehicles, but it's not 200 or whatever, or 1,000 that have been. I think there's 1,000 have been shipped in the UK so far. There's not 1,000 cars with the issue. I think that's the that's sort of where we're at. Is effectively we've seen sort of a couple of percentage, but not as high as people are making out on the group and on Facebook groups and things. So I think that as I say, I'm looking at I've just clicked through all of the bulletins on here. I'm looking at all the bulletins myself. There's nothing on here that says anything about do not drive the vehicle. There's nothing that says don't drive it above a certain speed. I'm literally clicking through the comms. So if there is a bulletin out there saying that, then it's not on the dealer portal that I'm looking at. It doesn't say anywhere about this, so I don't know which. Crawford says he's going to email me the comms. That's fine, but it's not. It's not on the official line that's on the documents I can see.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a downer, Vera, having the car for 3 weeks and then 3 weeks in the garage. So
Not 3 weeks, 1 week. 1 week. 1 hour short of 1 week.
Yeah.
Well, from what you've heard, Vera, are you going to go and say, "Can I have my car back?" until the bit comes through?
I went to visit it over in Peterhead.
Oh.
I bought it in Aberdeen. I went over because I needed some things out of it. And I went over to say hello to the Lone Ranger.
They've got plenty of so they'll be fine. And there's another fault or whatever, an undertray bulge, Miles. What on earth?
Yeah, so there's a deflection of a centimetre or a couple of centimetres in one of the panels. It appears to be that the way that the mounting holes are on the panel is that the panel can't lie flat and have these bolts go through it. Basically, the only way to get the bolts to go through is for it to kink. And it effectively the air goes in one end and it comes out the other. It shouldn't make any difference to the actual aero because it's not creating any sort of restriction. It's dipped at one end, it's dipped at the other, so it goes straight through and it's a flat edge. So it's not causing any extra deflection that I can see. However, we've asked customer service at MG what the issue, if they've got a fix for it. At the moment they don't. It's a plastic undertray which is there to effectively stop dirt flicking up at the motor. Watch this space. I hope to have some information at some point, but at the moment they're just obviously on with the oil leak at the moment, so trying to sort that out. But part of the issue we've got, I was just about to say, part of the issue we've got with this oil thing is that the way that things work with MG UK is that MG UK, if they have a quality control issue on a vehicle, they report it to China. China then investigate it and then report back and tell them what they can do about it. So it's not necessarily something that can get fixed quickly, because if it does require parts, they've got to then ship them from China. So in the case of these breathers, obviously it takes like 2-3 weeks for them, even an air shipment to go through, because they've got to produce them, they've got to box them up and get them sent across, and they've got to go through all the customs process. So it can sort of take a week or two to for issues to get, for the parts to be able to get across, and then for those to be able to do a fix, so to speak, or whatever, or fit the parts. Again, with the plastic undertrays, it doesn't appear to be all of the vehicles, so I don't know why that would be the case. I presume it's something to do with the manufacturing tolerances, but again, waiting for further information from MG.
It looks like the kind of thing, if you buy something, you've got a screw on the wall, you get one round hole and one slotted hole to allow for the slight tolerances of positioning.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, I think that
and
was the
maybe
case,
if some of those holes in the plastic trim were slightly elongated, it would allow it to find its natural position before fixing. But
if they had it's probably that they say they've. It looks like they've got these recesses, they've got these bolt heads in, and perhaps it's a 10mm hole with a 9mm bolt going through the middle of it. If it was a 12mm hole, it'd probably sit flatter. So yeah.
Can't say I noticed it now. I wasn't really looking for it.
Bernish said if it wasn't for the bulge, the oil would be leaking out. So Steve's been sitting there quietly and listening to how Vera's car's been parked in somebody else's garage for 3 weeks. But you're much in the same boat, aren't you, Steve?
I sympathise. I haven't had my car since the 5th of this month. I was hogging a Tesco charger whilst doing some shopping, and came out to it, pulled off, and lost the power steering. No power steering. So I managed to limp it home. RAC came out, plugged in, came up with a diagnosis of it, and we got it. I got onto my local dealer, onto Motability, because it's a Motability vehicle. They said book it into your local dealer. Phone them. They couldn't have it till the 17th. I'm like, okay, right, sit on the drive till then. So on the 15th, the RAC come and picked it up to take it to the dealer. The dealer was meant to look at it on the 17th. I phoned them on the 18th and said, how's the car? Don't know where. 20 minutes later, they come back and said, oh, we found it. It's in the workshop. What's it doing here? It was supposed to be looked at yesterday. Fobbed me off, sort of thing, and said they didn't know what was wrong with it. And Friday last week, they said they still don't know what's wrong with it. They spoke to MG, and they said the MG have told them to do a load more tests on it. My one big question is, Miles, do you happen to know if the steering rack runs off the main battery or the 12 volt?
It runs off the 12 volt battery.
Sorry?
It runs off the 12 volt battery. It's a 12 volt.
So why haven't they just put a separate feed to it to see if the rack's working or not?
A lot of majority of the components on the vehicle run off 12 volt because they're standard car components.
Yeah, I thought that was the case.
Yeah, the only things that don't are the obviously the onboard charge, the motor, the PTC heater, the aircon compressor, and onboard charge and things like that, and the what else was I going to say? Onboard charger,
inverter for the
the inverter, the charger, the air conditioning system, the heater. Yeah, they're all high voltage. Everything else runs off a low volt. So obviously, like your headlights are normal headlights, they're running off 12 volts. All the dashboard stuff is running off 12 or actually 5 volts. So
well,
there's no good reason why the power steering would be not tested as it's normal. It's a normal Bosch. It's actually Bosch that make the power steering on the ZS, so it's not as if it's a weird,
No.
Chinese part or anything. It's just Bosch.
Oh dear. So words will be had then.
But I think the part of the issue is going to be parts availability as well. So we've got massive problems at the moment in dealerships with obviously availability of parts, availability of courtesy cars to lend people as well, because a lot of our fleets have had to be downscaled because of the shortage of cars everywhere. Back in the day, we'd sort of, when we used to have like loads of pre-reg cars and things, we'd sort of go, oh, you know what, we'll tax another 6 cash car and we'll give you one of those as a courtesy car whilst we're checking yours out. And if it takes 3 weeks, whatever, it doesn't matter. We're now to the point where we've got basically just one of each model, if we're lucky. So we've got one MG4 demonstrator, one MG ZS EV demonstrator. We can't get another MG4 demonstrator until there's free stock available, which is likely to be March or so next year, really. So it's that makes it difficult for us to then obviously lend people cars in the event that, like Vera's, where they're giving you an MG5. That's good that they've got an MG5 to give you.
Mm-hmm.
We're down to one of each. So
with myself being on Motability, they use a hire car company, Eurocar. So on the very next day, I had an HS delivered to me, petrol auto. My God, what a horrible gearbox! So I'm stuck with that now, and I'm watching this fuel tank going down, and I'm like, I've got to fill that back up.
Have to go to Tesco's.
Yeah, ask them for some free
Diesel
petrol.
at 192 a litre.
Oh, I haven't bought petrol in nearly 6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a weird experience a couple of weeks ago. My brother picked me up in this car and we went out, and it was the first suck bang squeeze thing that I'd been in for 3.5 years, and it was weird. It kept sort of going backwards and forwards, as the dicky moved, and it kept throwing you backwards and forwards. Horrible expression. Don't know how anybody could put up with it.
Yeah.
Having done so many years in the trade before I hurt my back, and now getting in another petrol car, I'm like, why was I ever in this trade? These things are horrible. I've got so used to electric now. It's real eye opener in that respect. And I was flabbergasting with that. But I can't wait to get the thing back. And now I know a little bit more. I'll be on to them tomorrow morning saying, why haven't you looked at this, and blah blah blah. And I'll be on to Motability because they're getting a bit irate with them as well. They were talking about financial consequences to me. So we'll see.
You better fill Vera in the financial consequences, and then she might.
That's Motability. That's different.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen many other reports of power steering issues.
No.
Steve, no?
No, I haven't. I think it's a one-off. Miles will know more if it's. I would have thought you would have already said that if you do have a problem, but.
What with power steering? No.
Just sounds like a one-off.
No, there's not anything. If it was, we've had people report about a bit of a clunk on the steering before, and that was racks that were replaced. But no, we've not seen anything with the actual motors on them. So
the knuckle joints also were getting a bit dry, weren't they? I understand.
So thanks for bringing that to our attention, Steve, and maybe we'll keep an eye on it, and if you can come on the next podcast and say what the update is, that'd be good.
Yeah.
I see a few folk in the chat asking about delivery dates, so I think, Miles, you'd probably be better taking that one.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really give an awful lot of news, to be fair. So we are seeing some deliveries coming through. We have got, I think it was about 13,000 cars due to land in the UK before the end of the year. So just to explain to people what's happening with different models, because it does vary from model to model. The MG4, let's start there. So the MG4 is on allocation. What that means is that dealerships like ourselves and other proactive dealerships like Luscombe's and a few others took pre-orders on the MG4, and we placed orders as soon as the ordering opened with MG. The problem is that MG wasn't able to control what cars were already on the water when they were sent from China. They'd basically just been sent a whole lot of cars from China. So we placed orders August for these cars. The cars were already on the water and they arrived in September. And out of those first lot of cars, around 50% of them were SE standard range, 10% were SE long range, and 40% were trophy long range. Of those cars, rather than allocate them to the orders which had already been placed, instead MG decided that the fairer way to do it, because of a lot of car dealers are struggling for cash flow at the moment, because if you don't get sent a car and you don't hand it over, you don't get paid. What they decided to do was allocate cars to dealerships so that each dealership had some launch stock. So we had, I think it was 75 or 80 pre-orders for MG4s, and we got sent, I think it was 18 cars, of which half of them were SE SRs, which we didn't have, which we only had one order for. So what that then means is that a whole load of other MG4s, which would have satisfied our customers' orders, were sent to other dealerships. And if they didn't have pre-orders on the system, they then offered them out on social media. They offered them out to people that just walked in. So it may well be that if you ordered a trophy orange long range from me, and we had 5 or 6 orders in for those, let's say, I'm just using pulling numbers out of thin air. I'm not actually looking at our order sheets. That you may not get your car yet, but somebody who walked into a car dealership in Wolverhampton may well have got one, you know, the first day off the transporter because they didn't have anyone for the car. So that was unfortunate, because it meant that obviously all of our customers have got orders in place and they will get a car. It's just that they're not going to get it in the order that we thought they would do, or that anyone else thought they would do if it was going to be fair. Likewise, we're getting a second allocation of cars within the next few weeks. They are again being allocated to dealerships, so it's not, again, they're not tying them up with the orders that were already in place. They're just saying, okay, you've got another 10 cars, you're going to get such and such and such. You scatter these out to the orders that you've got on file, and any spare ones you can sell. So again, there'll be some standard range SEs that we haven't found a home for yet, that we will find a home for, no doubt, as soon as we get them. But and as well, it means that as well, some people were like, oh, well, I'll have any, I'm not bothered what color I'll have a blue, orange, or a red. And then we get a white one in stock. And it's like, well, do we offer it to the person who first placed an order for a white one? Or do we offer it to the person who said they'll have a blue, red, orange, or red, and place the order 3 before, but then they didn't say they wanted a white? So, you know, it becomes a bit of a nightmare, to be fair. And I feel really, really sorry for all the customers that we have that have been waiting. And I know I've seen Tom on the chat earlier is still waiting for his MG4. It's not something we have had control over. We have orders on the system. We will get those cars eventually, but they're not coming through in the order that we would have hoped they would. From Christmas, they're going to be satisfying orders according to how they were placed on the system. So probably January onwards will be a normal system for ordering, because at that point MG has had the 3 months, whatever it needs, to tell the factory what cars it actually needed to build, and then build according to those orders. So that's with the MG4. With the MG5, the current model has come to an end. The new model is having a press launch this next week, and we expect dealer demonstrators into showrooms within the next couple of weeks. So sort of mid-November, we hope to have dealer demonstrators, and there should be some launch stock of those as well. So MG5 facelift is due very, very soon into dealerships. MG ZS EV, MG is still currently trying to work through their back orders. The lead time's around 40 to 45 weeks at the moment. So effectively, you're sort of 9 months to a year for the MG ZS EVs. They are trying to obviously, do orders in the order that they were taken, but again, if they get to a point where they're missing some bits to make a trophy, and instead they've got the bits to make an SE, they'll make an SE, and your trophy will end up taking a bit longer. It's just difficult, I think, is probably the words to use for that. So we're still trying to allocate orders. There have been some people who have cancelled their ZS EV order and are getting an MG4 instead. I fully appreciate those frustrations that so I think that's where we're at. But I say, so if you see, look, I always want, obviously I'm not on commission, but I would always want my dealership to do well, and I would always want them to have good sales. But if you have an order on system for Chorley Group, and you see a dealership that's got your car in stock at the moment, and you want to get it sooner, I would say if you want to get it sooner, go for that other dealer and go for that. It's not something that I obviously want to see. I wish that we could provide cars for sooner, but if MG happened to send a blue trophy MG4 to I don't know, Essex instead of to me, and it's going spare and it's advertised on social media, then think about changing your order. But with MG ZS, the compounding problem with this was the grant situation. So some people who placed an order, I see somebody put an order on in November last year. You'll have ordered at a different price point, and you'll have probably ordered with the benefit of a grant on that car as well. If you cancel and switch your order to a different dealership, that would lose it. But having said that, the ZS EV shouldn't be coming up at the dealerships unless there's been a cancelled order somewhere else. So the stock should be
you might lose your glass sunroof as well, mightn't you?
Yeah. So the orders placed before July was guaranteed the glass sunroof on the trophy model, and the changes after that mean that you lose that. So I would, if you got a ZS order in, stick where you are or cancel and go for an MG4. If you've got an MG4 order in and you want to bounce to somebody who's got one advertised in stock, then go for it. Clive just asked on the forum, don't UK dealers do inter-branch transfers? Yeah, we would do if we had loads of spare stock. But if you find me a dealer who's willing to send you a car that they could get £1,000 of profit on themselves, it's fairly minimal at the moment. I think that they'd be quite keen to sell that car themselves and keep their turnover and keep their staff happy and everything. So yeah, inter-branch transfers aren't really a thing when nobody's got any stock, or when everything's selling at list price. Everything's selling above list price. And if you look at other brands, we've got we had some people trading in ID3s against the MG4, and they bought the ID3 for 27 grand, and we've given them 33 for it, for a 18-month-old car. So they're laughing. They've got 6 grand profit, and they've got a car that basically does everything the other one did, with some bonuses like oil leaks just to keep you entertained.
I've been dying to say, as you know, I loved my Mark 1 ZS EV and got my Mark 2 long range about 8-9 weeks ago. It's a better car in almost every respect, but imagine the hate mail that's going to come on now for me gloating I've got mine. The only thing, and I'll bang on about it.
How long did you wait for it after all? What was at the end of your
I ordered it in September, I think it was, and got it in July, August, was it? Oh no, it starts September. Probably, yeah, best part of a year, I think, yeah. But yeah, Miles is entirely right. Had I chopped and changed the order, I would have lost out. I'd have lost the grant, and I'd have lost the old initial pricing. So
yeah, well, I think that it's frustrating. It's really frustrating for us as dealers because the way that, you know, I think is fair isn't necessarily the way that some other dealers would think is fair, particularly if they're benefiting from the fact that I'm not getting the stock that I would like to hog to be able to sell to all the pre-orders I took. But I think that yeah, it's a tricky situation. I know other dealer groups that are selling other brands are going through similar hell. You know, I know a Volvo dealer, for example, where Volvo said to them with the XC40 full electric car, they said, well, you've got a choice. We're not price protecting it, so the customer can either pay an extra £5,000 or they can cancel the order. We're not bothered because we're going to sell the car anyway. You know, if we don't sell it to you for that price, we're going to sell it to somebody else. So, you know, we're not fussed. So, you know, it's such a ridiculous demand constrained market that we're in at the moment that the usual sort of, you know, rules of what would be good business seem to have been thrown out by some manufacturers. And it's a struggle for us when we're trying to, you know, we're trying to still do the right thing by people. If we're physically not sent the cars, it's really not easy for us to do anything else because we can't imagine, we don't build the cars ourselves. And again, just to clarify, on the forum, somebody had said that the guy from MG. I'm not the guy from MG. I don't work for MG. I am, you know, from a dealer group that we sell MG products. We sell Nissan and Kia and Hyundai and Vauxhall and Citroen and everything else as well. But don't imagine that I've got any sort of control or any influence over MG. I will ask questions and I will sometimes get responses, but I'm not. Yeah, I can't do the impossible, unfortunately.
And I think anybody who's been watching the podcasts over the last couple of years or so, you've always been very fair and very honest about your comments, and you've said that. And for somebody to say the guy from MG is not fair upon you, Miles, that's not good. On the ZS new range, long range, the new one, I still cannot find out how to switch off the radio. I don't want to put it on mute. I want to switch it off. There is no way.
There's a way to switch off the whole screen effectively, but not just the radio, is there?
Yeah.
So you can. I mean, the only thing to do would be to switch to an input you're not using, like USB or something like that. Change the source to something like that. But no, there's not a way to switch off the radio that I'm aware of. Having said that, it is about a year since I last drove a ZS EV long range because we've not had. In the good old days, I used to get every latest MG and be able to drive it as my personal car through the company. And for the last year, I've been in a MG5 because it was the only car we had any spare of. And the ZS EV with the 40-week lead times, they're like, the one that I ordered for myself got shipped off to a customer, but they were screaming. So I've not actually had that much experience with the ZS EV facelift.
It's such a car, Miles. It's better than
with the MG4 as well. The MG4, I drove it for one day to Whitby and back, did 215 miles in the day, posted up a video, and that's me done. That's my experience with the car because we've only got one. I can't be taking it home every night because they need it for test drive. So I think that overall struggling for stock, but I suppose it's better than having loads of them kicking around and nobody wanting them. But it's frustrating.
Miles, I see somebody asking, I can't quite remember who it was, but a ZS replacement on MSP platform?
Oh, yeah, right at the start, there was a question.
Adam
so MG stated when the MG4 came out, they stated that the MSP platform, so this modular scalable platform that used in the MG4, is going to be the basis for all cars going forwards. And that effectively in a few years' time, the MG4 is going to be the oldest car on that platform because all of the other cars are going to get replaced and put on this new platform as well. So the ZS EV will be coming on that. The replacement for the Marvel R will be coming on this new platform. There will be a new MG5 eventually on this new platform. And there'll be an MG3 electric vehicle on the platform. And of course, the Cyberster, or MGC as it's potentially going to be called, also on this new platform. And I saw a spy shot on a Chinese website this morning of the Cyberster being tested in Europe somewhere. I think it was Slovakia, or Estonia, which is where they tested the MG4 about a year ago before it came out. So the all of these cars are coming. However, I think the next car we're going to see on this platform is probably an HS replacement and an MG3 and the MGC. I think that they're the next ones to come, because they're the longest in the tooth, really. So I think the MG3 replacement as an EV, the MGHS replacement, and then the Cyberster, and then the ZS EV will be one of the later ones to be replaced, because at the moment, to be fair, the lead time is almost as far as that anyway in front. But yeah, there will be a whole of new vehicles coming on this platform announced over the course of the next year. MG want dealerships to have bigger showrooms. So at Chorley, we built a brand new showroom last year, which is an 8-car showroom. And that's been done because they expect us to have a product lineup which will involve us having 7 or 8 cars in the showroom, as opposed to at the moment where you've got MG4, MG3, MG5, ZS, HS, which is what, 5 cars, and MG3's kind of run out now. We don't really have any of those in the showroom. So B. Cabela's just asked, any idea of release dates or price for 4-wheel drive MG4? We believe it's Q2 of next year, so sort of April to June. And price will be not a clue. Don't know how much that'll be. I imagine it'll be a few grand more than the current top of the range. I believe it's going to have the option of a bigger battery as well, but I don't have any further information on that. Roy has asked, how much notice do you get to the allocation? It seems some dealers are able to state which MG4s they have while they're still on the boat, and others have no info. At the moment with the MG4s, we're getting so the standard order system that we use, which is where we place all of the pre-orders and things, that's not really getting updated. Instead, we're getting an email from our area manager saying, these are the cars we're going to kick off the boat to you next month. So we'll get an email saying these 10 cars are coming to you, be a white, whatever, this, white SESR, a black SESR, a red SELR, etc. So we'll just get that sort of, handwritten, almost, emailed list of what cars are coming. So we will know which ones they are, but we've got to then allocate them to the orders that we already have, if we have orders for those.
Because I've been puzzled, Miles. I've got, as you know, I mentioned before, and on the last call, when local, and I've had some test drives in the MG4, and being quoted, oh, if you want an SE standard range, you probably 6 to 8 weeks we can get it to you, and it's be up 14 weeks if it's going to be a trophy. And more than one dealer has said stated those numbers have been quite.
Yeah, so MG has sent out a very general guideline of what their current lead time is for certain models.
Right.
So we've had again, so it says, like, for example, MG ZS EV is currently 40 to 45 weeks. So that if we're having a conversation with customers, we know roughly how, set people's expectation. We were told recently that if you're ordering orange trophies, they should be available within about 8 weeks. So presumably there's a whole load of them coming on the next boat across.
I think they're all coming to Essex.
Yeah. Yes, the sort of fairly high level sort of indications of timelines from that. In theory, MG4 orders should all be able to be, pre-orders and everything else should be sorted by about January. So we should be sort of fairly caught up by then. which so yeah, it's that's what our expectations are. So if you're yeah, Clive says he's been told 16 weeks on the LR and 14 weeks on the MG5. Yeah, it's about that. I think I was told 12 weeks on the MG5 when I checked most recently. So about that sort of, 3 to 4 months.
Poor electric
Sort of
car.
level.
Australia hasn't got anything, so it looks quite dire. So I just noticed the time. We better start thinking about wrapping up. But before we do, Miles, sorry to bombard you again. One more sort of semi-technical question, and that was came up in the chat earlier on. The MG4 not listed on the OZEV £350 charger grant. Is that correct, or do you know anything about this? Or?
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. Well, the only thing I know is it's not. The only reason I imagine is because probably MG didn't think to actually apply for it because they thought that the grants had finished on home charge, and they forgot that they're supposed to carry on for people who live in flats and tenanted properties. So I will send an email to MG to ask them to look at getting that put on the OZEV thing. I believe it's an oversight. It's just that they probably just didn't even think about it because there's no grants anymore for the actual cars. They probably didn't even think about it from the purpose of anything else. So I'll get that forwarded through. It's I know from experience with other manufacturers when cars weren't on the grant portal and they were. So it takes a few weeks for all the paperwork to go through because they submit the claim to the government then does governmenty things, which means that they basically take the papers, they put them from there to there, and then they leave them for about 6 weeks until they think about looking at them again.
Good.
And there's not been very much government-y things going on, has there?
Oh, there's been a lot of government going on. I think there's an awful lot happening in the government recently, and that's probably why.
You're lucky claims. You've only got one government
massive on their list.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, I'll give Miles a wee rest there. There's one or two other wee queries coming in.
I've just seen Stuart's asked, any news on software updates for the MG4 Niggles? Well, there are some software updates out there for the MG4. Vera, if you can ask, I presume your dealership we're doing those when it's in anyway.
I hope so.
Yeah, you might as well, whilst it's in there now, if it's there for another week, you might as well ask them to make sure it's updated.
Yeah.
There are some software updates for the MG4. I don't know, because I haven't tried, which, if any of those niggles, such as the drowsiness warning and things like that, are fixed by the software updates which are currently on the system. But
the Android Auto is also a thing.
Yeah. So I was told a couple of weeks ago that it'd be fixed within a couple of weeks. So hopefully that's one of the updates which is either there now or will be there within the next week or two. And
hopefully mats for the car as well.
So what was that? Sorry,
mats, floor mats.
Floor mats are in
floor
stock.
mats for the car. Hopefully they arrived over.
Yeah, they are in stock.
No, they didn't get them.
Oh, they are in stock.
They are now. Oh, okay.
All of them, yeah. Look
Yeah.
at this. Clive said, I understand there's issues with insurance on MG4s too, because some insurers don't have anything on file for them. The MG4 is on the insurance database. The ABI codes have been posted on the forum. If you search for MG4 ABI, as in Alpha Bravo Indigo, you should hopefully find the numbers for those that you can quote to the insurance company so they can look them up on the system. Do you know when the MG4 will be Euro NCAP tested? I believe it's happened. I believe it's 5-star, but it hasn't been posted yet. As soon as that is, no doubt someone will put it on the groups. But yeah, it's been designed. MG has been constantly saying it's a 5-star 5-star Euro NCAP car. They wouldn't be saying that if they weren't confident that that's what it was getting rated at. So
like the roof
I believe,
bars, on the
that's all right in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll call it a quits for Dave for now. I've been talking too much, sorry.
Vera, you'll be glad to know that Beaker Bailey started a movement to give Vera free mats. So
it's quite all right. I've been saying that to Jamie at Galander every time I speak to him. I hope the mats have arrived.
Next
We live in the country.
Next podcast, I'll probably start off with, for only £1 a week, Vera could have car mats. Okay, guys, I think we'll give Miles a couple of minutes. Just going around the table. Anybody got anything else to chip in just before we wind up? Barry, you?
No, I guess that it may be I'll order the 4-wheel drive version. Might get it soon.
With 2 differentials, will the oil come out the front and the back? Or?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's going to be basically it'll be like wacky races. We'll just have like a button you can press on the dashboard, and it's just going to squirt oil at your people behind.
And Keith, you just brought a tear to my eye when you were talking about the oil, because you said I just noticed a couple of drops on the Chuckies. For everybody else outside Scotland, Chuckies are granite chips that we put in our drives up here. A wee tear just ran out. Oh, he said Chuckies. Steve, have you covered everything you've seen? Well, you haven't seen an MG for long enough.
Oh no, I have one. As I say, I've got a petrol HS. So, yeah, no, I'll if I hear of anything, I'll put it in the forum.
Perfect. And Vera and Keith, well, we've got a movement going for your car mats, Vera. That's good. So.
But no, we're just appreciating MG5s at the moment.
Yes.
Lovely driving things, there must be said.
Yeah, our driveway's full of MG5s.
You must have about 10% of Aberdeenshire's MG5 population.
Not far off it now.
Miles, anything to finish off with?
Just to say, if you are interested, there's an MG4 heading to Qatar. To basically take the Welsh supporters to the World Cup.
What's there? Only 3 of them, is there?
Yeah, so if you follow all of them, yeah.
Sorry,
3 of them.
If you follow at Electric Car to Qatar on Facebook and also on Instagram, you'll see details of the thing. They've been to Geneva on their way. They've been to the UEFA headquarters in Geneva. So they're doing this big long trek. It's basically Nathaniel's MG sponsored the Welsh football team. So they've sponsored the car. They're going down with. They've got the car going to to Qatar. There's 3 or 4 of them going in the car. The driving now through Europe, it's not too bad. Once you get into the next continent over, it's not quite so easy. So it will be interesting to see how that journey progresses. But yeah, Electric Car to Qatar. So they're currently in Switzerland, Geneva, but they're heading down and hope to be there in time to see the first, possibly only match of the Welsh football team in the first round. So we'll see. So see how that goes. But good luck to everyone on that journey. Hopefully, have a safe trip.
I haven't heard about this World Cup thing. It sounds quite interesting.
It's been World Cups for everything, hasn't it, this year?
Yeah, it has. Yeah.
I went to the rugby league in Newcastle, England versus Samoa game. Brilliant atmosphere. And I was brought up on rugby union because I went to grammar school, and so I didn't know what the league was about really. But actually, it's a really fast game. I was really impressed. So.
That's something another sport Scotland excels in. Anyway, we'll move on. As a wind up, guys, before we go, if you are interested in the ORA electric cars and the ORA Cat coming to the UK imminently, and I see, and Miles or Barry might correct me here, there's some ORA releases. I think there's some, one of the showrooms in Scotland is definitely having an open day for the new ORA Cat.
Yeah, there's going to be test drive opportunities at dealers. If you go to the ORA website, you can book a test drive opportunity on there. I've had a drive in one, and I have to say I was very impressed. So I haven't done a video review as yet. I'm hoping they haven't done the press release yet. So when they do, hopefully I'll get to drive one of the earlier cars and do a review on it. But it's a nice piece of kit actually. It is similar sort of size to the MG4. Feels bigger somehow, feels taller. I think it is, like, it seems to sit a bit higher on the road. Feels more like the ZS sort of drive position, but yeah, nice car, and be interesting to see when they, actually have them in dealers.
Yeah, it doesn't drop oil. It's just litter.
Yeah, it's got a litter tray to drop his oil in.
That's right. Being a cat, it licks it up afterwards.
Yeah.
But again, please feel free to join our sister forum, the ORAEVS.com, and have similar queries, etc., answered on there. So to wind up, just slightly later one tonight, but thanks very much to Barry. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
Keith and Vera.
Thank
good.
you.
Thanks.
And keep those donations coming in. Poor Vera doesn't have a car, man. If you're
Begging balls out.
if you are in the mood for giving donations, poor Steve doesn't even have a car. Thank you, Steve. Good to see you again, buddy.
And you, I'll write you a check, Vera. I'll send it in the post.
Make it payable to cash.
We would do, but we're paying for our electric at Tesco's now, so it's time to. And again, another huge thank you to Miles from the Charlie Group, not just MG, but other brands as well.
You're very welcome, guys. Thank you.
Great. We'll be back with another MG EV podcast soon. If you found this podcast useful, please click on the like button. And also, if you subscribe and click the notification bell, you'll be notified the next time we go live, which is particularly useful, as sometimes we change the day, etc., depending on what we're covering. Thanks very much, everybody. Good night, and we'll see you at the next podcast. Night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.